Our dear learners, welcome once again for our second lesson. I hope you had a nice time. I emphasized the good handwriting while writing the activity, and I believe you wrote so well. I love neat work. So I remember in the previous lesson, I gave you some activity, and at this time around, I think let's go through together. Let's make some corrections for those of us who were challenged in one way or the other. We can go through this work, okay? So the first question was, who is a meteorologist? So a meteorologist is a person who studies about weather. Then our second question was, how is the information about weather forecasting important to the following people? And the first one was farmers. So you find information about weather forecasting helps farmers to plan for the farm activities. It helps farmers to know when to plant and harvest their crops. Then the other group we had was that of the pilots. How is the information about weather forecasting important to pilots? So it helps pilots to know when to fly the plane. We can proceed. Which question really challenged you? So our number 4, before we go to number 4, another group we had was that of the students. How is the information about weather forecasting important to students? So you find out it helps students to know what to wear on a particular day. Then our question 3, which condition of weather causes drought? So they talked of a condition, not an element. So the condition that brings about drought is sunny weather. Then the condition that brings about floods is rainy weather. Question 4 was talking about mentioning one weather instrument. So we have a variety here. We have the rain gauge, we have barometer, we have hygrometer, 6's thermometer, Campbell sunshine recorder, wind vane, to mention but a few. Then our number 5 was give the meaning of the term humidity. So from your experience in P4, you realize that humidity is the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere, okay? So that was all about the previous lesson. In today's lesson, we are going to look at types of climate. Our topic is still the climate of Uganda, and in this case, we are going to particularly look at the types of climate experienced in Uganda. So if you are to remember very well, I told you that climate is related to weather, okay? So in this case, by the end of this lesson, I expect everyone to know how to define climate and the related terms, to identify the types of climate in Uganda, to mention the factors that influence the climate of Uganda. In other words, what are those factors that bring change in the climate experienced in the various parts of Uganda? Okay? So as we proceed in our first session, I want you to think about what comes into your mind when somebody talks about climate. You can take 1 minute. You can share with a friend there. You can see that person near you. Let's try to brainstorm. What does the term climate mean? Yes, I think you have had a wonderful chat there. We can now proceed and compare what you have come up with and what I have here. So you find out that climate is the average weather conditions of an area recorded for a long period of time. I want you to note clearly these 3 words: average weather conditions. Everyone say conditions. Average weather conditions. Can we spell the word average? Average, let's go. A-V-E-R-A-G-E. The word is average. And what does this word average mean? Take a look at this table here, okay? Can we read the heading? It says, the table showing the climate of a particular area. And in this case, we have been given the month, we have the temperature, we have the rainfall that is measured in millimeters. The temperature here is measured in degrees Celsius. So when you look at this table here, you find out that Jan had this amount of rainfall and each month has been catered for. So you will find that they kept on recording the millimeters of rainfall that were received on particular days in January, and later on they added them. Then they divided by the number of days in January. So when they divided, they came up with 45, and that's what we regard as the average. So in this case, it means that if they were to distribute the millimeters of rainfall that were experienced in January per day, it shows that each day had to receive 35 millimeters. So when we talk about climate, it may take like 20 to 30 years when these people are recording down the amount of rainfall received, at the same time temperature. So after those 30 years, they get those records and then they divide by the number of times they recorded. So what they come up with is what we refer to as an average. And in this case, this table shows you that when we talk about climate, we majorly look at two things, and that is temperature and rainfall. And what do we call this? We refer to them as aspects or components or factors of climate. So what are the two factors of climate, or what are the two components or aspects of climate? When we get here, you can see that we have two. That's rainfall and temperature. Meaning when you talk about climate, you're referring to those two. Are we together? Yes, I hope you are enjoying. We can proceed in our second session here, like we saw during weather. What do you think are some of those terms that are related to climate? Because I remember during weather, we saw terms like meteorologist and meteorology. So in the case of climate, what do you think are those related terms? Yes, you ask your neighbor there. Feel free, okay? I like children who can talk, okay? So I hope you came up with such terms. One, climatology. Everyone will say climatology. Can we spell the word climatology? Climatology, C-L-I-M-A-T-O-L-O-G-Y, climatology. So when we talk about climatology, this is the study about climate. Everybody, this is the study about climate. Then the next term is climatologist. Everyone say climatologist. Let's spell the word climatologist all together. C-L-I-M-A-T-O-L-O-G-I-S-T, climatologist. So climatologist, this is the person who studies about climate. When, for instance, right now you are in P5, but when you go up to the university, you can choose to take up a course that aims at looking at the climate of our area. So in this case, we refer to you as a climatologist. So basically, these are the terms, these are the common terms that are related to climate. So in our next session, that's session 3, I want us to look at the types of climate experienced in Uganda, or the types of climate in Uganda. We have a variety, we have a range of them, but in our subsequent lessons, we are going to look at one by one in details. So what is very important, I want you to let's go back to I want you to take 2 minutes to think about what are the types of climate. So according to this, you realize that I've started with this. This is a tropical climate. So the areas that experience this type of climate, tropical climate, are called the tropical climatic regions. Areas that experience tropical climate, we refer to them as tropical climatic regions. Then another type of climate is equatorial climate. Everyone say equatorial climate. So equatorial climate is one of those types of climate experienced in Uganda. And those areas that experience the equatorial climate, we refer to them as equatorial climatic regions. Then we also have the semi-desert or semi-arid. Everybody say arid. Everyone say desert. So semi-desert or semi-arid climate. Then the fourth type of climate experienced in Uganda is the mountain or montane climate. Everybody say montane. Montane. Can you spell it? Montane. M-O-N-T-A-N-E. Montane. And the areas that experience mountain or montane climate, we refer to them as mountain or montane climatic regions. You can guess what are some of those areas that experience the montane or mountain climate, basing on this word. So that one, I've left it for your research. Next time when I come back, you'll be in a position to tell me. So we can proceed. I want us to look at the map. Okay, when you check here, reason why I started with the tropical climate, I told you very well that any area that experiences a particular type of climate, we refer to it as a climatic region. So basing on this, when you look at this yellowish color and take note of the key here, so this one here is standing in for tropical climatic region. So the type of climate experienced in this region here, we refer to it as tropical climate. Then we have this one that is semi-desert climate. But my major concern today is about tropical climate here. Why? It covers or it is experienced in most parts of Uganda. Because when you look at this map, you can see that it takes the largest part. So they can, for instance, ask you, which type of climate is experienced in most parts of Uganda? So basing on this map, you can say this is tropical climate. Or they may twist the question a little and ask you, which climatic region covers the largest part of Uganda? So when they talk of a climatic region, you say tropical climatic region, okay? So this one is for basing on this. Which climatic region is this? This greenish color here. Which tropical? I think you can see this is equatorial climate around Lake Victoria and around those areas that are crossed by the equator. Then this region here, this is semi-desert or semi-arid. Then this reddish color is standing in for the mountain. So these areas with red experience mountain climate simply because they are mountainous areas. Okay, are we together? Are we enjoying the lesson? Somebody can ask himself, why do we need to have this information about climate? How is it important? To me, I say it is not important. How about you? Oh, that's right. So information about climate is very important. So in our session 4, I want us to look at the factors that determine or influence or affect the climate of an area. So what do you think makes different places to experience different amounts of rainfall? Remember, I told you when we talk about climate, we majorly look at two things. That is rainfall and temperature. And we call those ones the two aspects of climate. So what makes different places to experience different amounts of rainfall? Let's do some research. You can share with a friend there. Then we can share as a group. Take 1 minute. So what have you come up with? I believe in your research, you must have come up with the following. 1, climate can be influenced or can be changed due to the relief or altitude. Relief refers to the general appearance of land. And then altitude, this is the height above the sea level. I think you learned that in the previous classes. Then water bodies can also affect the climate of an area. Just like I promised, we shall be looking at a factor one by one. We shall look at how do water bodies affect the climate of an area. For now, we are just getting to know those factors that affect the climate of an area. So the third one, you can look at human activities. This was also affect the climate of an area. Talk about the vegetation cover. Talk about the latitude. And latitude, this is the distance from the equator, the distance in the north or south of the equator. Then we also have prevailing winds. These are seasonal winds that blow towards particular directions at a particular period of time. We have, okay, this one has been repeated. We have the ocean currents, okay? And so we can have a look at some of the pictures of how. So you can see highlands influence cloud and rainfall formation. So in this case, which factor do you think is causing this rainfall here? Which factor is determining the rainfall pattern or the climate of this area? So basing on this is a mountain. So you find we are looking at relief or altitude. So we can proceed also to look at some other pictures, okay? The water bodies, we say they also. So when the sun hits the water body, you realize it promotes evaporation, and through that we can get rainfall. Let's continue. I hope everyone is okay. Human activities. Who can tell me what is taking place just here? So you can realize that there is bush burning going on. Then we have some deforestation taking place. We have here road construction taking place. And all these ones can either encourage the growth of vegetation or the destruction of vegetation. And you know very well vegetation helps in the formation of rainfall. So human activities. So this is about latitude, and we say this is the distance north or south of the equator. So those places near the equator experience direct sunshine. And as they experience too much sunshine, you find there is a high rate of evaporation and transpiration. Altogether, we refer to this as evapotranspiration. So we shall look at it ahead there as we go. We can look at another picture, okay? So prevailing winds, we say these are winds that blow towards particular directions at a particular time. So they also have a way they cause a change in the climate of an area. As we proceed, we can also look at the vegetation. So this vegetation normally promotes transpiration. So it helps in the formation of rainfall. And I said, when we talk about climate, that's rainfall and temperature, okay? I hope we are moving together. We have the ocean currents. Ocean currents, this refers to the directional flow of water in an ocean or a sea. So the direction that is taken by water in an ocean or a sea also has an effect on the climate of an area, as we shall see in our subsequent lessons. Okay? Are we together? You can wear a smile to the neighbor, okay? Yes. So before we end today's lesson, I hope you have learned a lot. And I want to give this opportunity. If there is something maybe that you need to inquire, something you didn't get very well, you can please consult your neighbor there, okay? I hope that is done. And like in any other lesson, I have some activity for you here, okay? And the first question says, define the term climate. The second question says, mention any two types of climate experienced in Uganda. Which type of climate is experienced in most parts of Uganda? Remember our map, that climate that covers the biggest part. Question 4, give a difference between a meteorologist and climatologist. Question 5, apart from vegetation, mention any other two factors that affect the climate of Uganda. 6, write down the two aspects of climate. Once again, I want to thank you for being a very good audience. I remind teacher Kagans Moses, I emphasize, follow strictly the Ministry of Health guidelines, wash your hands, sanitize where possible, don't touch your soft parts of the body, that's say the mouth, the ear, the nose, and the eyes, because we need to kick COVID-19 out of Uganda. Have a nice day.